I think that's always the thing that we want with APAC. We've asked for it for a very long time. It's every team has shown the possibility of greatness. Every team has had these games where you're like, this is it. This is where we have the talent swing. This is where we have the FAF swing. And then things start to go a little bit wrong. And we end up with similar names in the top 4. These are two teams that have always generally been around that top 4. And I think, you know, it does speak of their quality to always be general contenders for majors. But also, now that there's been a bit of a change of the system, things might get a little bit more intense.
Yeah, no more playoffs for those of you just tuning in for the very first time. We used to always speak about how, well, first of all, it will be the first place instantly guaranteed major, and then the next 3 would go to the playoffs. But that changed at the start of 2022. And then it was the top 4 would go to playoffs, where the top 4 of those playoffs would be eventually making it to the major. That's all scrapped now. It's the top 2 of APAC North and the top 2 of APAC South, just based on the regular season standings in the end, who will be making it through. And that means that all these games just became a lot more intense, because you're no more fighting for a spot. You're fighting for the direct invite.
It's it, right? It becomes that moment where you now have a more sort of straightforward track in front of you. You don't have a second chance, but there's also way less room for you to fail here. You have to have one of those top 2 spots. Otherwise, that's it. You don't get the chance to play through playoffs. You don't get to have that sort of plucky, lucky break. You can't try and stretch yourself in what is an extended version of the tournament. It is just the league, and it is just the chance at that major and that chance at a bit of growth. Here on theme, I think one of the questions that we sort of threw around and buzzed about the studio before it started is, with these 2 teams, are we going to see an attacker-favored theme?
I have no clue. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the case in the end. We know Cyclops likes to bring some funky operators every now and then. Not that I'm saying the current lineup is too weird. There is this Donella there. Don't often see that anymore. For example, Frost out there for the Frost mats. But mostly on the attack is when they do start to get very creative. And that is what I'm looking forward to so far. Is Gadarada gets a bit of a spot there from the Prisma. And, well, didn't quite want to go for an engagement there because also knew he could just lose his life early on.
Gadarada's in a bit of a tricky position here. Obviously, there is rotates out, but you want to see if you can try and stick yourself in as surprising as possible. No surprise now. Envy Taylor on the Nook, I think, wanted to try and slip their way through, but there's the reveal of the player. There's the catch on the Frost mat. And now they're going to see if they can lean back in. Gadarada sure is. The pre-fire comes around, just sees the edge of a Frost that's really wanting to lean into this engagement here. And, well, drawing a lot of attention, a lot of focus, and a lot of time. You're looking at this site, and you're looking at how you want to take it. That bottom of yellow stairs becomes a big, important part of a lot of teams' pushes. And for that, you need this. You need the clarity over the space. Black Ray in the meantime opens up. Shyle and one more over the top there. Locks in above, and well, I guess that's the other space that you might need for the yellow stairs push. The top of Dragon, it's still CAGs.
Slowly starting to fall apart here for Sandbox. Haven't been able to get into the building yet even, and they're already being shut down. And there's still plenty more issues they need to overcome here. Someone in the bathroom holding cash. You see there the only operator icon that managed to get inside. Diana. And then also one here on top of Dragon. So they didn't get very far. They need to start hitting those walls. It's just difficult to do so with the amount of aggression that's currently being brought out by Cyclops. And with 80 seconds left on that clock, only now Envy Taylor is starting to get the drugs lab under control.
That's it. It's worth remembering where the site is. It's underneath, and Arakaze still has a lot of work to do on the top floor here. Finds Black Grey, gets revenge, but him being able to already find 2 bodies of his own means, well, he's done his bit and his part. Now, can they try and find some of the angles back towards it? They do still have static on that Heartbreed. They do still have grenades to try and bounce around. Only really one, but there's nothing that should directly stop that wall, even in fact being popped open. It's just the cost of all of the discs, and the ADS is on the opposite side. It's very much bunkered in, very much mobile here, as we can see them stretch themselves around to Oil Pit. They have a swing, and Envy Taylor has himself a little bit isolated between pretty much 3 players.
Looking if there's an opportunity to maybe go into the barrels. I mean, drones are coming out to get some spots out. So I was aware of one of those players, but might have seen it before. One is on the arcade stairs as well. Envy is not going to be able to lock in any of these skills, but a trade comes in from Arakaze. He's going to try and go for a second. Goes for the pistol here. It's a bit of a tricky position to be in here, and he will be picked up from the back. So 1v3, only up to Static now with that diffuser. Knows where one is, just needs to isolate him first.
Hiding in the smoke. Oh, he has everything of steel. No, Anderton. I was going to say he held it really well before he sort of stuck himself in on the first engagement. There, I mean, I guess the sort of confidence to just stay still. Their vision's based on movement.
If he's not hitting me, he will not be hitting me at all. Basically skipped by the one position where he was. Pre-fired the other two areas. Might have been prone. Didn't know that. Of course, smoke was out there blocking that vision. So good first round, a double entry from Black Ray up near the cache area, and the top dragon really helps. It takes out the angle out of the attack that they wanted to go for with Sandbox. And of course you still have some of those crucial operators, but you're just very limited in what you can actually do in such a situation, and thus they needed to try and force some kills. Didn't help then. The Nook unable to find that first connection onto the barrels. Also, basically in between a three-point attack. Barrels, splits, also the arcade stairs. As soon as he walked out that door, it was a death sentence.
It was a start that I guess is to be expected, a bit of Cyclops there. The swinging, the activity, the things that we talked about before on the desk is they like that. And Theme as a map plays into that. I think that's one of the worries with Sandbox. One of the problems that we saw in the first split, and granted it wasn't the full final roster and there's been changes since, was they were a bit slow, a bit cautious, especially on maps that I would say are transferable, like when we saw them on Skyscraper a couple of times and it wasn't quite finding that connection. Here, they went for an approach and it got shut down pretty quickly. We didn't get the true eyes on to see how it broke apart, but it was sudden and it was this sort of strike back with only a couple of boots in the building. So it seems like Cyclops, they're setting themselves up so close to those walls that it's causing Sandbox a couple of teething issues on the approach.
You want to stop them from getting inside, especially on that top floor. I mean, Jack said it before, there's only 2 doors and a bridge to windows. As Black Ray found Arakazi there, went a bit aggressive as soon as the airdrop launcher was being pulled out, and that's another entry kill for the side of Cyclops.
I mean, that was it. You just have to expect them to swing. They're always going to try and set themselves up. If you're going to pull out an air jab and you're still within swinging distance and you have a sight on a player that's in that room, you know that they're going to try and take the fight with you in a moment. Good boy. He's prepped with the Amaru. He wants to see if he can try and get a quick slip up here, but now that they're a man down, it's a bit of a big risk. So instead, gets himself to a new position. Tries to find a slightly new angle. Is that a Riley charm I see? It is. One of the new
streamer charms.
New streamer charms.
There's a bunch of them.
For Rai.
Yeah.
Very cute charm.
It is a very good charm. Nice little cute logo. 90 seconds though. Pre-placed drones being set up by Shell. So just to make sure that they can find anybody inside of Arcade. And talking about that, Black Ray will be finding someone inside of Drug. It's the second kill of that round. He just continues opening up these rounds for Cyclops and just leaves Sandbox with so many disadvantages. I mean, look at it as well. They only have 3 drones and some RCs as well. It's going to be very difficult for them to try and get all these positions of the remaining Cyclops players sorted out.
Well, now a steady breach and break over onto the cafe side. There is still the single player tucked in behind one of the alibi. Pops the Prisma, pops their position, and gets popped by Black Ray. A triple for this round so far. He is absolutely tearing through it. And look, he just finds a new window, a new angle. Good boy at least shuts them down. But at this point, it's 40 seconds. They're confident enough to long arm some of that utility all the way outside. It's 2 versus 4. They started off as a 2 versus 5, and now they're going to see if they can just try and push themselves over the top here of Arcade. There is a player on the stairs that does get caught out. Good boy's on for a double, puts a little bit more in, but 25 seconds, and they still got to try and find their way through onto the side itself. So as you see, locked him around the corner with the English shotgun. Should be able to pop at least a sliver, but it doesn't need it. As Good Boy gets caught out by a spray round from somebody else. Static. All that's left past the first smoke canister sees the head of the next player. They just need to put some pressure on and make sure he can't get through. They have the reveal, the play, the swing round onto the top of the arcade. 5 seconds. He has a kit, but that canister is just going to find his pass out now. They don't show their head. Cyclops, 2 rounds.
Second round indeed, and that is 5... Okay, let's just put it like this. 5 opening kills for Black Ray before Sandbox was able to put something on that board. First round, he managed to get 2. Then finally a kill came in for Sandbox. This round, he managed to get 3 before finally Sandbox was able to neutralize him here. So far, Black Ray is the absolute dangerous factor here in Sandbox's game. They need to make sure to neutralize him. They need to make sure that they try and isolate them and find the entry kill that way, or at least trade him out instantly as he does, because right now he's dealing too much damage for Sandbox to even try and launch an attack. Because what you saw there in the end, I mean, it's like a Hail Mary. You're tossing your flashbangs and you see if you can actually lock out these kills. And yes, of course it got up to a 1v2 in the end, but that's only because Cyclops is giving them those gunfights to keep them occupied and stop them from planting at that moment in time. And now with a 22-second left on that prep phase here, very specific, Cyclops is headed towards the initiation and the office. Sometimes we do see an extension into bunk. Not quite sure if we see that. I mean, we do see some reinforcements coming down, but I don't quite see the rotate yet. That would normally be there, so there it is. Okay, shotgun opening up now. I was just wondering, are they going to play this in a different way? No, they're not.
They also on the board in the hands of Arakaze. It used to be something where if I'm going to talk about the pushes that we saw from Sandbox in the previous split, also was a part of that. Usually in the hands of MV Taylor and usually a bit unsuccessful. It was slow. It was cautious. It had a couple of moments, I think, on Clubhouse where she was able to make some good use of the Talon Shields. But outside of that, it was... yeah, it didn't quite have the pace that you need. And to be honest, the pace being applied so far by Cyclops... yeah, it's pretty terrifying. It is that game that they love to bring to Siege, and you can see with Anaton prepping himself up the potential of a hop out here. There's many windows to try and break yourself through, but yeah, 2 claymores, 2 windows, 2 covers, 1 alligator. Shiel finally finds the opener here on the side of Sandbox in the 3rd round, and is going to keep the spray heavy and see if he can try and find a second. He doesn't. No, it was Black Gray. Perfectly timed elsewhere, takes the head off of Envy Taylor.
It did definitely look like Charles just found a second head there onto one of the players of Cyclops. So not the case, and that means we're still in that 4-on-4. This time, though, entry kill for the side of Sandbox. And Melusi gone. It's not really the most dangerous operator you need to remove if you're looking at potential stall that is on the board. Galarado would have been a good pick for that one with those smoke canisters gone, but considering Sandbox hasn't really been able to get any attack mounted, every kill they will take at this point, so they can actually try and get close towards that side with the majority of their players still alive.
Over a minute and a half now, and we're going to start to see some approach to the objective, some of the play that we haven't actually got at all out of Sandbox as of this moment, based on how they've been picked apart before they can even really start this process previously. The grenades lobbed over the top to take care of that shield and make this hold a little bit more awkward, but Black Ray has already proven that, to be honest, all he needs is, well, a gun and a chance and an idea of swinging around. A rotate just came off the back of the site itself. I'm not sure if they're pulling themselves back around and just kind of setting up a backline, which you can do on this site, but the concern starts to come around onto the computer. The swing round here against Suzuki in the door. They've got themselves locked in. They have another Oster shield, and now they have the breach onto the wall itself. Oh no. Stopped by the mute jammer, so they're going to pop that gun 6, bounce the grenade around the corner, and this should, but yeah, wrong side.
Oh no, still got it. Rolled back in, I think. I thought it locked off, but not going to be the case. Smoke canisters are being tossed out as a bit of a response, but that of course won't stop that wall from being opened up. But now the extension they have inside of bunk is going to be very helpful, as that will give them another opportunity to try and fight this plant from happening in just a couple of seconds from now.
But that's it, 20 seconds, a couple of seconds is all they've really got to work with, and they've got to try and push through these smoke canisters because, well, they're now there pretty much until the very end. Suzuki, he's got himself close. The C4 still in pocket as well to try and long arm the response. There it is. There's the catch. There's the blow. Good boy is gone. The swing round tries to get the solidity on the second and finds it a double. There's a trade over the top. There's a cold kit. There's a spray against the shield. Shiel has no idea where anybody is, and he's all out of time.
The time runs out. There are 3 people trying to jump right into the initiation area through that breach that they made before, and all 3 got shut down one by one. Didn't really work out there, and a tactical timeout will be called by the side of Sandbox. They know where you are. They will take the fight. They're not afraid. They're not pulling back for any reason. Even when it's a 5v2, you saw them take this. They take the fight. They're not afraid to back off, or they don't know what backing off means, rather. And it's just very annoying to play against. And of course, Sandbox, they are very experienced in playing against Cyclops, but they have made some roster changes, and that is something you cannot forget as well. Is Good Boy and Arakaze now in that lineup where they were in before, with all those, you know, tens of matches they've played against Cyclops in APAC North before.
The change to a clash is, I guess, a particular play on the side of Anaton, who was previously on this site, stacked up on the arcade stairs and sort of keeping himself alive much longer than he probably should have been allowed to, but it takes confidence to be in that position and keep you cool, and he did. It isn't really going to herald the biggest, I think, change of play, as we might see from some other teams where they'll build around a shield. Anaton can play a mean shield game, but it's often just a part of the Cyclops show, which we've already seen in full posterity here.
It's not surprising that Monty got banned. I mean, it's one of those ops that often gets banned when we're talking about the shields and we're talking about Cyclops and Anaton. But it's going to be good to see how the Clash will be used. I wonder if it's going to be used directly on the site for the last couple of seconds, or if Anaton is going to be a bit more aggressive with it, hoping to aid the roamers and bait some people into lines of sight that they didn't know were being held. In the meantime, though, the top floor mainly being droned out. It seems like maintenance is already under good control here for Sandbox, and that will force them, or at least push them, to start opening up onto that wall next to the throne, which gives them a direct line into the objective, into the B-bomb site behind that throne room to potentially go for a plant. There's just still players inside. There's still utility that could be used to stop and deny that. Let's say impacts, for example, when they do decide to go for a bit of a breach with the exothermic, so they'll have to be careful for that.
It's the thing about this take. It's not the opposite of the other take, but it's usually the first take a lot of teams go with, is the attempt over the top here. So he's in a position to try and C4 out and see if he can destroy it. They have at least some stuff to catch the hard breach, but you're also only looking at 2 hard breach charges. Alongside the Thatcher, they should be able to make it work, but they've got to be cautious about it. The cover on the rotate over the top of Dragon Stairs. This is all the territory that you really need for this take to come together. The lockdown of computer above, the cover onto Dragon, and then this. The opening on the wall to start the pressure onto the side itself. The burn comes through. Good Boy himself is able to take the swing shield out to make sure they don't have a little bit more pressure, but again, it's all time where we're finding ourselves ticking lower and lower. There's the first EMP roll. There's the play on that, and you can see the Clash is moving into a bit of a position, and there it is. The breach is able to come through. They have themselves a route onto site. They've got the site of a smoke canister, and behind that a Clash. Job's not done, but it's at least started.
That's what the Clash is going to be used for. They let them have that breach, and now they're trying to slow them down just enough so they can't go for a plant safely here. And with the first kill, though, coming into the way of Sandbox, is definitely going to be helpful, but Catarata still behind should be able to find an opportunity to take out the planter if they do decide to go for it.
Well, the Clash is causing so many problems here on this breach hole, but so is the smoke canisters. Once again, we find Sandbox stalling. Black round, a huge rotate round. He realizes, well, he's not going to find a way over the top, and if he gives them a 5 versus 4, they might be able to try and strong arm their way through. Anaton is just going on an adventure, and he's playing it so aggressively. Blackray finds Shyle over the top, and they're able to balance it back in, but there it is over the top. How is he able to survive that long? How does he cause a team kill? Cyclops! How? Underlined question marks and exclamation marks in the notebook. Cyclops, how?
The fact that he's just staying in that door, treating it like it's a mountain, which it isn't because the shield gets side knocked. It's an opportunity to shoot out the legs. It's just Thermite smashing that shield. No one there was helping him. No one there was trying to take care of that Clash, and that basically wasted 20 seconds of one of those players. And Cyclops able to go up 0-4. And normally with Fresh sitting here in the studio, I could already imagine what he was going through right now. Just having his hands in his head, being like, what am I seeing? But Cyclops there with a bit of bravery coming in from Anaton on the shield there. Yes, he eventually died, but he wasted so much time. It's going to be 0-4 up. And we're headed back towards the bunk and daycare.
It's not frustrating to watch because...
It's frustrating to play.
It's frustrating to play against. If you're in that situation and you've just come off the back of a tag timeout, and I guess this is what I mean by the Clash isn't going to be defining the play. Anaton is just going to play the Clash amongst Cyclops' play. A lot of other teams, if their Clash player had done that, they would have been furious and fuming, and they would have said, why are you doing that?
Yeah.
In the case of Anaton, it works. And it shouldn't be allowed to work. It shouldn't be allowed. Maybe that's the better way of framing it.
It shouldn't be allowed.
It's not, yeah, it's a kudos to Anaton for trying it, but it's probably Sandbox's fault that it's worked.
All it took was a second player just being prone, watching the feet, and as soon as that knife came through, shoot him, as Black Gray yet again will find an entry, but instantly traded out this time. That is what we needed to see on the side of Sandbox. Either grab the entry or instantly trade out Black Gray, who has his third of this matchup so far.
I mean, it's finally happened. It's something that, to be fair, they have dabbled in, but usually Cyclops has been able to find a couple of seconds in between the first to then pick up onto the second and turn it into two very quick 1v1s, but there was no real way out for Black Gray. There was another third player stacked up just in case the second fell as well. Here, Sandbox, you've been able to bite, you've been able to get that opener, you've lost your Nomad, but you still have a lot of potential here. You still have the chance for a fight. Again, it's worth reminding how good this roster can be when it comes down to the fragging game of Siege, where we find ourselves sort of sitting. At this point, okay, it's still theme, it's still one that works well into the side of defenders, but it's just the pace and the control that Cyclops have been able to have, and the irritants they've played off.
They're just annoying. Sandbox, that's all they're doing. They're trying to play onto their nerves right there. The speed, they're peeking everything. They're running out if they get the opportunity. They're swinging whatever angle you can maybe imagine. And then they're also on top of that bringing the clash just to end it all off. It's Aegator with yet another kill. Rotates back into the throne, and that is a bit of a miss drone potentially coming through there. A late rotation made with the impact allows him to pick up the kill onto Shao, onto the Yana, and that is suddenly a lot of utility gone. They do, however, know where he is. There is pings coming through, and I'm not quite sure whether or not they are aware of that on the Cyclops side.
Now it's a little bit of a lull, a little bit of a moment as they try and line themselves up. They know Cyclops players are loose, and they know Cyclops players are a problem when they're loose. You can see that they're having a bit of a guess on the positioning, the push up the stairs. They're actually just going to ignore that play for now. Good Boy's able to get one, and a slight suffer there on the swing on the door, but not enough as Envy Taylor finds Anaton. Suddenly they've got themselves inside the site, and Aegator, well, he was a problem they forgot about, and now he is the only potential problem left. The creep up round on the back of Arcade stairs, covering round onto the swing, just sees the end of the buck, but doesn't win it out. Arakaze finally finds the end of the first round for Sandbox, 4-1.
Managed to put one on the board. They're actually using the Amaru. I'm pretty sure they went into break, managed to find those 2 kills as a result. As soon as that buck decided to, you know what? The Amaru's going in. At this point, I'm going up Arcade stairs, so we have multiple angles to attack against because we did just lose 2 players, meaning we only have 3 left. They needed to push the advantage they had onto that site because there was only 2 directly on there, and they did that well. And with that, they will still convert it into that round that they now have on that board. But they want to go for a second. They're probably not going to be content with a 5-1. It gives them a fighting chance for the full 3 points, but it's... You want one more, just so you have that extra buffer, just so you can slip up once during your defense and still have the opportunity for a full 3.
It's a breath. It's a breath. I mean, if they're able to forge out a 4-2 here on the turn of the half, I'd kind of be a bit impressed based on just how the opener of the game gone, especially considering they've used their tech timeout. They've already utilized their one pause, their one time to have a conversation with their coach and get him involved and just sort of stem the pace and see it. And obviously, you know, Cyclops have theirs if they need to use it at any point, but from this, as far as the game's considered, it is just play to the whistle now. And Sandbox have to make sure that they can try and grab as much of that before the turn of the half.
Yeah, they have to. They cannot afford to lose one more round here because suddenly it's looking pretty dire. As soon as you give over to the defense yourselves and you're up against Sandbox, who... Not Cyclops, I mean, who have quite a bit up their sleeves. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a Glass and Sense push coming through. I mean, it is something that if it is being brought, it's probably going to be Cyclops. And I wonder if they're going to be playing into that, if they're going to be bringing the Warden prematurely, just in case, for example. Not that it matters now yet, because we still have one more round before that swap happens. It's just to start looking forward a little bit at what's up to come next. Oh, he's waiting for that drop.
Do they know? They're sending the drones to find out, but the thing is, often Anaton...
Sending it through the window.
Sending it off the side. There was a bit of a jiggle peek there onto...
He dropped now.
There's the engagement. They have the chance at another player offering some support, but it doesn't matter. Envy Taylor, once again, is the first body off the board for Sandbox. He had an impact on the previous round as the lead-in, but he's unfortunately been a bit quiet throughout the rest of this. They've pulled themselves a little bit further back into the office vault itself. They have, obviously, that little bit of a buffer zone across the side of the cache, that long red corridor that leads itself through onto the fight, which Arakaza is going to see if they can try and put a bit of distance into. The concern with this is you never really know where Cyclops is going to swing from next.
The one thing that confuses me out of Cyclops' plays in the defense is why they don't bring a Thunderbird. I mean, they swing literally everything, and they always take damage on the way in. They could just as well use that heal every now and then. But the bridge has been made onto the initiation. And again, this is where it went wrong last time. 3 people trying to push in from that one area, and they were all being shut down one by one. And just look at what you see in control right now. It is 3 players out here. The first manages to make it in. It's Static that is not going to be able to get Suzu C, and he's going to continue on this swing now, Static.
Well, that's it. He's going to go for another pickup. Static on the Ash is able to get himself into a very tricky position. Arakaze is going to see if he can stick the plant. He's covered with a bit of safety. He expected somebody else to swing around just in the mix of it. They don't quite have the angle. I get it does have a pocket impact, but he's not quite confident enough as the pings come through. It's a post plant. First one we've seen of this showdown so far, and the final potential one to lock it in. A 4 versus 3. They still have the man advantage, but as you said, there's a lot of damage done to the Cyclops players. Even more as Good Boy tears one up, looks for the second and gets revenge. Gatorado are able to get the post plant, but it's Good Boy with his third for the round. Anaton, he's looking for at least a little bit more. He opened up the engagement here and took care of Envy Taylor, but now he's got 2 remaining players, and both of them are a lot healthier than he is. The scrap, the scrape, the fight around the pillar either side, and it's Good Boys 4K to wrap out a 4-2 half.
Well played there by the side of Sandbox. They needed to get that second round, Emmy. They managed to put it on the board as well, and that gives them that fighting chance as we go over to the swap of the half, where it is Cyclops now taking that initiative, having to go onto the attack on whatever puzzle or maze or fortress it is that Sandbox decides to pull up. It's always interesting to see what kind of operators they will choose to go for. Now, this phase doesn't say anything yet because the repick is always in, and Cyclops, they make good use of that. The defenders, however, they do not have that luxury anymore. They used to have a 6-pick, that is now gone. So what you see, even though it does have an arrow out there, means he just changed his opinion in the last very second. And the 5 operators you will be seeing. And the Capcan traps, those might be a difference maker here. If Cyclops wants to go for a quick entry, for example. His second swing, by the way, in Anaton is just... Ying has an LMG as well. You just continue firing and just decides to go for it anyway.
Yeah, people who dislike the LMG meta just swing into it. Apparently it works. Yeah, please don't do that.
Peek them.
People at home, please do not try this at home. It will not work.
It will throw your elo.
All right, Cyclops, you've dropped a couple over the past couple, but that's always the start of things because you can be a great attacking team. You cause problems on your defense. Now you've got to try and be the solution to the problems caused against you here. Sandbox, they have a bit of breathing room. Most importantly, from the map itself, you can probably tie in at least one of these. Suddenly the game is much closer to being level, and from where it started and from what I talked about before, I still think being able to claw out 2 rounds from the chaos of the first 4 here for Sandbox is a really good return to a form that was otherwise entirely being lambasted and pushed to a side by Cyclops. Here over the top, they have themselves a lot of control of the space. The Dockerby, Lion, and Jackal over on the right-hand side of the screen is going to cause a lot of problems for the loose potential play that can be offered on theme.
You want to go for a bit of a top floor take here first. They want to get that under control, get rid of any piece of information that might be out there for those defenders, and then start working on maybe opening up some of these walls. Wouldn't be surprised if it would be a yellow take that is eventually to come through from the side of Cyclops. Otherwise, it's going to be maintenance with the control they currently have. Calls are coming through. Good boy. He's under a bit of pressure. There's a line. There is a Dokkaebi. Calls are coming through. They should be able to locate that player. Pings are coming through, but no push quite yet.
Yeah, they have the audio of the call, but not quite the direct location, and that is a drop that is entirely blind. So Black Ray has to come over and offer some flat support here, because if you just take that, you're probably just losing your life in that engagement. Black Ray has got the swing on the door. Static is there in a position as well. They might not know just how many of them there are or were up here, because Static is slowly being surrounded. The hit on the window, the spray onto the first reveals that single player. He's looking for the next fight. Good Boy's a bit of a stretch and an extension. Takes the hatch drop and gets the rotate there. Almost out of there. I was going to say out of there, but Gator, watching on the lower window, is able to at least take one of them. The player that hopped over the top. Now, the catch of Anaton. They have that vertical control. They have a minute to start seeing what they can do with it.
Well played by them there. I mean, they knew where they were. They tried to force them out of their positions and catch them off as they rotated out. Successfully done so as well. Just unfortunately missed the rotate. That was inside of barrels. But that can be used either way. They could try and take that control and push through the site that way now as they try and figure out if everybody's on the site now or if there's still someone hiding around in lockers, for example, that they need to dispatch off.
Oil seems to be a bit of an iron idea here for Gatorada. It's not the most common way of breaking yourself into the site, but at this point, without the breach and your attention paid to the other side of the wall, with nobody really coming over to yellow, it seems like one of the only real options left. I say that as they find their way around onto this. The bottom of the staircase is going to be the next attempt here. The impact does catch the charge, and there's the E1D on the door. 15 seconds, and Gatorada just tries to swing in. Black Ray is the one that actually finds success here, but they're the ones that have the onus of the plant at the time. Envy Taylor with 1, 2, and Shile over the top. Anaton and Envy Taylor. He is turning it into a bloodbath. Anaton has the last lock and the laugh, but with a kit in pocket and no player to be found. It's a cap can in a corner.
Decided to pick up the kid and then realized I don't have time. Yeah, just saw him in a peripheral there, but it's not going to be able to reply on it in time. And that brings it back to that 4-3 with Cyclops there. Entry kill, managed to perfectly shepherd these roamers back towards the site. Just not enough time to eventually do go for the execute. A bit of a misplay, maybe, as well, when they tried to open up the yellow wall, like I said they would before, as there was no grenades to be tossed over to try and dispatch of the players that would be trying to go for the impact trick. I mean, it was opened up. That already spells out what the plan is going to be for the defenders there.
Well, Cyclops, they got close in that they were actually putting pressure onto the site, which is, to be fair, better than Sandbox's opening attacks. But we are deeper into a game, and Sandbox have had the time to warm up. A bit of a change there, obviously, across both boards, but Cyclops are a team that I think very much enjoys the idea of attacker repick. It gives them a little bit more option and mobility. Ossa is the biggest change there, I would say, in terms of flying a flag, the Lion off as well. None of that control of space. I think they've sort of realized, well, we can close down the players, but we need to put the pressure onto the site a little bit more.
The moment you put your eyes away from the Ossa, it changed into a glass.
It did.
Which was it?
Against a Warden.
Against the Warden. Okay, I mean, I said this as well. Our Sandbox is going to be running the Warden just to be aware of any potential fast smoke, glass, / sense push to come in, because if there's a team that would do it, it's going to be Cyclops. Instead, it's just going to be the glass for now. And Stefan, one of our observers, easy, he was like, I didn't see enough entry fragging on the glass yet, so I really hope I get to see that. So who knows? Maybe Anaton is going to try and go for some early peaks with that rifle.
A bit of a stretch here on the extension of the site is pretty standard play at this point. Them getting that shield so deep and so easy is a bit of a blow, though. Obviously, it becomes a very powerful swing position. The prep up, the stack up on those back windows. They're trying to lean in a little bit more, but look at that. Black Ray, he's able to hop and get static, locked out over the top of Arcade. They've struck very quickly. As I said, they're going to pay themselves a little bit more attention towards the site itself and take out anyone between them and it instead of trying to chase them over the top, and it's worked so far. The late play in the place of the shield there, just to offer themselves a little bit more swing and support, and hope and assume there for the Arcade. They've got themselves the rotation, couldn't quite get it, the catch here, and well, with the pressure now pretty firmly planted over there, they're hoping that somebody swings into Gatorada on the backside.
Yeah, Gatorada was debating whether or not to swing in from the break, but not really something he could do safely. So rotate is called. They're seeming to go from the cash side of things. Tron is being prepared here, so as soon as the breach opens up, they can actually instantly find out whether or not initiation is being played. Now, a reinforcement will kind of give them the idea that yes, it will be, and that means they need to put some utility that way as well to get rid of those players holding the close angles.
All right, a very quick strike here, and Cyclops, they've now got themselves the time to go for the rotate. Black Ray is able to find Arakaze on the other side once again. The second time a player has been locked out by a player who's actually been absolutely phenomenal this game so far. 12-6, and doesn't show any signs of slowing down so far. Alligator with the pressure onto computer is just going to force a bit of a rotate here, and initiation from Shyle behind a little bit more solidity. The long play on the smoke canisters or the potential of the glass is always going to be a threat, especially now that the Warden is off the board. It becomes a much bigger problem, or a potential one, and they're just trying to find a way to lock down the push where they're still working out where it's coming from. Cyclops are playing it from two different sides with the pressure from Black Gray before, and here, well, that's a caught out Selma. They're not going to get the easiest breach across the board, but they've been at least able to get into an aggressive position, apart from Black Gray gone off the door of Cafe. Suddenly might be able to focus to one direction. Oh no, Suzu C and Shyle battle back and forth, and the kick goes cold. 30 seconds, and they've got to reconvene, get it picked back up, and get the swinging on the windows.
There's a Frostmat underneath the main entry they might have gone for here, but instead it is going to be the waiting room pushing. Gadarada will find Shao inside a break, and now they could go for a potential plan. It's only up to Good Boy, finds the very first, knows one was inside break, spots the head, but it's unable to connect the shots in the end. And Cyclops, they will win that round and push themselves up to 5.
It was better, I think, from the previous round for Cyclops, but as I said at the beginning, they paid less attention towards what Sandbox were doing and more attention towards the side. Okay, it's great to catch players, and they had a really good drive, and they did catch at least one of them, but the pressure at the end there was time. It turned into that little scrappy engagement in a death box. You never really want to be in a situation like a hot drop into split with pretty much all of your team, because you haven't left enough time to do exos on bottom yellow. Here, the pace that they applied early onto the pressure on Arcade freed up so much more time for them to work on the other side on the top of Dragon.
I mean, that round 7 when they all went split is kind of comparable to round 3 initiation, where Sandbox jumped with 3 people through that breach as they're being picked up one by one, and like surely one of us is going to be able to make it through alive and go for that plant. So yeah, it's not ideal. And Cyclops, whilst they were attacking or rotating towards the cash side of things, you still have Black Ray getting these entries on the other side near Cafe, just basically limiting whatever was left on the site. It's just that the rest of Sandbox also realized, hey, the majority is coming from Cash, so we don't necessarily need to fall back yet, because the diffuser most likely not going to be with Black Ray as he's alone. I like these Frostmats, by the way.
Yeah, they're really loving hiding those just under the...
behind the rotations. Now,
yeah.
And that one is behind a breach, so if they make a breach that is also jumped through, they would be caught off by that Frostmat.
Well, I think the breach would destroy that one.
Depends on how high it has been tossed up.
I guess if it's Selma's.
Yeah, possibly. I mean, we'll see in a second. Sometimes they do survive, sometimes they don't. It's a bit of a gamble here.
Time will tell.
Time will tell. See, look at that Sense, by the way. Sense and Glass.
Yeah, we got a Sense, we got a Glass, we got the potential for a highlight clip for people to talk about as a demonstration of what can be done if it gets done. It's hands that are very good with new operators, but it's ones trying to find the angle and the approach here. The pressure comes across. It's a different hold here in comparison to Cyclops's, in that nobody is trying to shoot them instantly through the door. It allows a bit of space for the drones, who are a little bit unsure where to go, but there's Static getting Eye-Gator, the Nook. Tried to find a sneaky entrance there, caught out by the Capcan underneath, and now they found themselves in a 5 versus 4.
Man, this advantage not ideal for the side of Cyclops. They still have quite some utility to go for here. All they need is just an opening and an entry. And after that, since the lack of a Warden during this round, they could potentially go for a smoke or a light screen execute here. First smoke's being tossed in. That's going to be allowing Anaton to start sneaking up a little bit and see and scout the site to see if anybody is playing close. Cannot quite find anybody just yet. Sees that shield, but no one behind it. Gets taken down through the rotation hole here and needs to be recovered, but Gadarad on the other side will find a kill.
There it is. They should be able to get the pick back up. They're using the Sens wall very, well, I'm going to say well there, but look at that, the swing round, and MV Taylor, for a man who was a bit slow to get into the game, is able to swing around and find a double. He has been a little bit more of a problem for Cyclops on the most recent swing of rounds. Suddenly, they're in the 4 versus 2. They thought they were able to at least bite some of that round back, but Sandbox did the most important thing, which wasn't let them. They stepped back into the fight. They pushed themselves forward, and now Suzu C is going to have to try and stack himself up and see if he can get an early catch. A lot of time left to work with, some utility, and some of it is some of the most powerful, but there's the catch. The ADS does stop the roll of that Sense. It will only go as far as it's gone at this point, and that's not very far, unfortunately.
Still has one left, is deciding to toss that into the A-bomb site here to lock off the player inside a fall to the player on the back of things here, so potentially a long run comes in, but that is going to be the cap control. trap that finds one, and then good boy with the second. It is Sandbox that will try and get that score closer again as it turns into that 5v4. Just a single round away from equalizing.
Well, it's good to see Sandbox starting to bite into this game a little bit more, whether it's just the fact that they have less of the pressure of time working in their favor. Cyclops, they're getting sharper with it, but it seems like, for my money, Sandbox is stepping back in. Before, in their first early defenses, they were a little bit passive at points. It worked for one of them, didn't work for the second one. But this time round, the way that they were stepping themselves back in. Obviously, the free sort of opener there, I'm not going to say it was entirely free. I don't know whether it was let off intel, whether it was just the Capcan caught the nuke by surprise, which does happen.
Okay, it could just be just not checking the one corner that the Capcan could be hiding in. Because I assume the nuke was able to get in unseen, considering the hell presence. Cameras shouldn't have been aware. And it could just be that Static was at the right time. Right place, right time. Able to find the nuke and neutralize a big part in that attack. Because that's 2 grenades and 1 sneaky operator that can just get around wherever and whenever with all those cameras active. But well, with a 4-5, it is again gotten rid of with the sense. I'm going to try that again, at least not now. We see the Dokkaebi and the Lion return though, and the Jackal. So high emphasis on clearing out these roamers again, like we saw in round 7. Back then they were quite successful doing it, just not with the eventual execute.
You know, we are back to this site itself, and I guess I'm curious to see if they do try and lead themselves over the top and go for that heftier clear and find themselves limited, or if they maybe try and approach some of the other problems of hard breach a bit earlier. If they had an opening, if they'd put some attention elsewhere, they might have been able to, again, have at least a plan B. And a plan B could have and would have maybe been the difference there, especially when you look at how the Sandbox players got themselves stacked up. Here, some attention is being played. The early drone game comes through. They've got themselves stacked up all the way across the top. They're looking towards these players. They're a little bit earlier in terms of maybe getting a cafe presence, and the swing might come through. It's down to Static to see when they want to leave. Not that early. Able to find Black Gray, able to cover at least the swing round. There's an Echo drone and a good boy pickup inside computer. One more player and a cold kit now, and this is entirely fallen away from them. The Echo drone of Arakaze, I assume, pinged all of that precious intel, fed it towards the players, sitting on mute jammers, which is a very clever play to stop the drone game coming through, and also any of these electronics. The calls wouldn't have mattered. The E1Ds wouldn't have been able to pick things up.
With that, able to stay here and get those entries, potentially going for a 3rd kill here. Static goes a bit aggressive, a flashbang goes off, but he will be taken out eventually, and that brings it to a 4-3. But the opportunity here now to hack these cameras and give them in favor of the attack, so they can also start using those, potentially find 1 or 2 players that are out there and look at whatever sneaky gadgets have been placed, such as the Yokai drone that Arakaze is currently driving around with.
I mean, that's it. He's able to at least still utilize that, but obviously, as you said, the cams are in the possession of the opponents, and they're trying to find a way to propel that on their way further through. They know that it's up there. They're using it to watch the use of it, and now they've got that gone. They at least have a little bit more of an approach, but to be honest, the Echo drones, I think, for my money, have already made their money's worth. Here is the pressure onto the backside, the breach that they couldn't quite get open before, the plan B or the option that they can try and utilize. Oh no, they've obviously lost G2C early on. They do not have the chance of that hard breach. They're just going to have to see if they can once again go for what is a very sticky push and pressure. The C4 over the door of smoke, the hit and the heft. There's an early pop, and Gatorada through a drone hole is able to find MV Taylor in his power position before. Balances it back out, but they still have to try and force their way through a very narrow opening. Shield, he's not able to get it because Good Boy gets his triple on the backside, swings. Split goes both ways. And Anderson is now suddenly stuck on the far side of the site, trying to hold on to a round, but with a handful of seconds and 3 players left ahead of him and a kit on the far side of Narnia. Wow, this is 5 apiece.
It is going to be a draw indeed, at least for now. Not, well, equalize the score, not a draw. We don't have those. And with that, suddenly it's a bit of a sprint to the end. See who's going to have the opportunity to fight for the full 3. But if we look back in that round, and of course it doesn't help that Suzy C dies first, you look...
Could be an attacker-sided one based on these teams. The only reason that question pops up is because of 2 factors. 1, these are 2 good attacking teams, and 2, this is a very defensive map, usually. This is a map that plays itself well into defense, and it is. You have those questions, and the question has been answered. No, it won't be an attacker-sided map so far. It's not the most out-there case, But the tack timeout before you find yourself dropping a point, a guaranteed drop of points, maybe all 3, is that conversation Cyclops have had here to go from a 4-0 lead to a 5-5 position now, when they know that there's only 2 spots that are guaranteed places at a major, and they know Sandbox are a team that probably will be fighting for one of them.
They have the intent to fight for it, and that's it. Whoever loses this round is losing out on a potential point, and is also losing out on getting even further ahead of one of their main competitors for those 2 spots. Because we said it before, these 2 rosters, or at least the majority of the Sandbox roster, against the full Cyclops roster, they have been going at it for years now. Ever since we started with APAC North, these 2 were at the top. Now that has changed ever so slightly, but still 2 of them are capable of fighting for top 4 positions, possibly even top 2. And that means that these matches are just so important. You need to make sure that you take those full 3 points home, because that just basically puts 6 in between yourself and the enemy team.
Now, it is that precious moment here, and this is where we start to see somebody who's at least guaranteed themselves something, which in a fight for only 2 spots and many other teams vying for them, well, you got to make sure that you try and take as much as possible. The pings come through, the pressure onto the arcade stairs. Static, he's been able to get a couple of cheeky kills earlier on so far. Doesn't take the shot on the player that slips past, waits, and holds the play in place. Gator, with the long-range Candelas, is just going to get a perfect toss. Gets themselves led in. There's a little bit more pressure over the top. Arakaze's caught something, and Static catches one, but the grenade gets a bit of response and revenge. Cyclops, they wanted to go fast here. The pressure onto the site itself. They're on the windows, and Susie C and Gator are making good work of it. There's the pressure. There's the swing. Is there a catch to Amai? Gets one. Gets caught out. Suddenly, it's just a 1 versus 3. MV Taylor, all that's left against a pretty stacked roster. He barely sees the end of it. Cyclops, the first to hit map point.
A very nice rush coming through from them there. The Candelas perfectly placed, as you said before. They landed pixel perfect onto the right spots there. And they wanted to go quick, well, they went quick. Up onto 6, have a point secured. And as you mentioned it before, a full 3 to fight for now. A single opportunity. No slip-ups allowed, because otherwise we're headed into OT, and then it might be just for that 1 extra point you will be fighting for, but more importantly, you're giving your opponent points. That's something neither of these want.
Okay, Sandbox, this is a moment, and this is a very important one. Probably not just for both of you, but it's also worth considering if I'm going to talk about how these 2 teams are ones fighting for those top 2 spots. Every other team right now is fighting for the chance at these 2 teams to drop points. They want an OT. They want to see these 2 teams stumble. Whether it's Damwon Kia, who are likely to also be fighting for those top 2, or it's someone that has a bit of a chance, Talon, who's had a bit of a swing around. You want them, from an opponent's perspective, to hit OT, because you want at least nobody to leave with a full fat 3.
Keeps the competition close.
Keeps it close.
And with that, easier to overtake if you are going on an M&M-like surge, like we've seen over the latter half of Stage 1 of the European League. And as the Fight 6 currently on that board, Cyclops, while they are still on that attack, the time is still pressuring on them, but maybe the bigger pressure is inside the Sandbox, because if they slip up now again, if they are going to be rushed or overwhelmed again, they go home with 0 points, and Cyclops will be going home with the full 3. Cyclops already secured themselves an overtime. They already secured themselves a point. They could, well, I don't think they will, but they could go for a bit of a funky player and try and surprise Sandbox.
I mean, it's always a moment, but it's one that they ran before. Here again, quick bit of pressure over the top. There is.
It's gone unseen.
The mute jam that's caught that. Flores drone, and as he said, it's unseen. You assume they'll try and potentially long-arm some of the destruction there on the wall. The Selmas and the play on the Thermite is going to allow the Flores to roll to the shield. Yes. Once again, they've been very good at getting rid of those shields and pulling apart that utility with the Flores. Here, Sophia.
No!
Oh dear.
Yeah, unseen. You should check that. Just quickly go over, and probably they heard that snap. They might be going for a bit of aggression now, trying to confirm the kill there in favor of Sandbox. It doesn't matter though. Static will find Black Ray before a return comes through.
Well, now with a bit of a fight here over the top of Dragon Stairs, you can see they're concerned about the jump out on the window, and there it is. The Sophia is caught out and locked off. No recovering that player, and one tricky little mat. is the problem here. Can they try and rebuild behind this? Catches the camera and catches some of the control of Dragon now that the player has slipped away, but they didn't quite get the full read on where they went. Static doesn't have a C4, doesn't have that position, and, well, they don't have Suzuki now as well. Arakaze takes them down. Ayagator at least gets the catch, a 3 versus 2. The panic and destruction that's coming through on any approach into the site itself means that they're going to go for potentially a hefty rotate, but look at the kit. Look at the tricky position it's in, and look at the mute jammer that's just going to stop any of that breach. It was, I guess, a bit of a tricky moment.
Odd decision where two are hunting down a roamer and a third with the kid is just deciding to go for the push onto the direct side. Ayagator though finds himself in, gets a great trade, knows someone is around the bunk area, and well, he forgot to pick up that kid, but Anaton is coming up right behind him here. If he manages to survive for just long enough, there could still be an opportunity for them to win this one, especially if he does land the shots. He's missing them all currently though, and Arakaze will find it with the FMG9, leaving it only up to Anaton.
Well, he's in a position here, one either side. They've got the hot pings, they know where the players are, only has 30 seconds, so it's not the do-all and end-all. One pocket smoke, but the pre-fire onto the first player shows that he has left. He's going to drop that on the rotate to see if he can cover the plant and hope he gets the call. Does, but doesn't get the catch. Sandbox, they just hold on to that. There was a moment when it became a 2 versus 2 in sight, and he almost got the catch on the player in the office that I was like, there's no way Cyclops take this.
That would have been a massive turnaround. Again, a bit of an odd decision where two are hunting a roamer and the third one is going in with the kit alone.
Oh, yeah.
You kind of punish your team for that in that situation there, and that could have cost them the round, could have cost them the full 3 points here, actually, because the extra person definitely would have been a big help. And now we're headed towards OT. And so far, the defense has been very much favored. And it seems like Sandbox is going to be the one to bring that with them here. Up to the throne they go first. It's been won twice by them on that defense, so they definitely be looking good here for the upcoming round.
I mean, I think you put it well there. It's still questions. You'll look at the round before from Cyclops and be like, nice, really good rush. That was perfect use of utility, fantastic, well done. Coordination was clean. That Ying was like a perfectly played and cooked grenade. It landed and exploded. At the feet, you never really see that. And then you see a round like that where they charge the diffuser into the site with the two other players elsewhere, and suddenly they're...
Yeah.
And you're just like... What was happening? It's like, yeah, you don't have an answer.
One round you have 100% coordination, the other round it seems like 10 in the dying phases there. It's an odd decision. Might have been a missed call, might have been miscommunication going through. We don't know that, of course. We can only criticize from far away, or at least describe it. But they're still not out. There's still an opportunity. We're headed into overtime now. For a while, it seemed like they might not be getting there after they only got one round just barely onto the bunk. So the fact they're here, I think they'll count for something right now, trying to lift on the back of that momentum of those last 3 rounds they played, where they seem to have the upper hand for quite a while.
Now, Black Ray, since coming onto the attack, hasn't quite been as massively effective as he was on his defense, where he was free to kind of do whatever he wanted to do. Good Boy, in the meantime, has really started to shine across this game. He was one of the only forces that was actually putting bodies down in the early part, but since the rest of his team has warmed up, he's just gotten even hotter. He's kept that sort of pressure, he's led into the gunfights, and he's made sure that somebody keeps standing up. Consistent 2Ks and 3Ks. I mean, it is just that play and performance that you want and need from a player like that against a team like Cyclops here. The C4 over the top gets shot out there, trying to get the catch on that loose thread here, but it's actually one of the most cautious approaches from Cyclops to spray through the door. He's hoping that that gets the ping from the other side, and the peak, there's another drone, there's a reveal, there's a player, static. He's under all the pressure of the world, but it's also a minute 30 that's passed now.
Yeah, a bit of a hold going towards the bathroom. Not quite sure if they think someone is still in there. The repel in came through now, and they could go on to hunt static now. Potentially will do that through the waiting room indeed. Gatorada will get that kill, and that is an entry. But you said it, a minute 10, minute 15 on the clock currently. They still need to work on opening up these walls, because otherwise all they have again is splits, where all their rounds so far have died. So they need to make sure that they get on top of this one quickly.
Well, he's ready with an impact to see if he can try and catch anything that gets planted on the other side. The forest drones once again roll themselves in. I've been very complimentary for how they've been utilized so far, but this is going to be the true test, putting them as low and hidden as possible to see if they can try and escape this. You have a little bit more with the X-Kairos, and you also have the Selmas as well. If I've complained about them not having enough hard breach before, they're definitely not making that mistake this time.
8.
Too late, doesn't quite get the catch, maybe didn't hear it over the cacophony of other explosions, but that is a wall that will fall.
Open up even further with the Selmas here. It's at least a wall. They haven't had that before on the side of Cyclops, something they could work with. So this could be the big difference maker here on their attack onto Throne. A very decisive one, as Sandbox has the defense advantage for 2 rounds in these next 3.
Tucked in, Shyle could be huge here. It's down to Gatorada trying to get some control of the back line. Envy Taylor finds Anaton. There's the kick cold once again. The swing round onto Barrels. Envy Taylor 360s all around the shop and finds a third for the money. Shyle pops up, but it's a quad for Envy, and he spiraled and he pushes his team. It was a slow start, but a flourish near the finish. We're not done yet, but they are suddenly in a position where they could take the 2 points here.
They're on a match point now, overtime match point on the attack though, but luckily for them, they have a defense round coming up right after this one, and so far, 8 rounds won, or 9 rounds won on the defense, only 4 on the attack. So, statistics favoring them for the rest of this matchup here, but things could still change. And as we head towards the Throne, again, it is an Amaru that gets brought out by Envy Taylor. Now, that might be seeing a bit of a switch coming up as soon as they realize what side it is, because it happens to be there's no direct hatches from below which you can enter from. There's also no windows that you can enter this side from. So
crazy.
A quick push, not really going to be helpful. You could, however, go for a top 4 clear with the Amaru quite quickly if you do know what is safe. Try and quickly take control. Often break room, Barrels sometimes challenged from the hatch above. If you have drones there, if you know it's safe, Envy can quickly neutralize any potential threats that could be appearing up near that area.
Here's an idea for an Amaru buff. If they gave her extra momentum when she hits the window, so she doesn't hit the window, she then flies another 15 feet through a room and goes through any softs. Like a combination of Amaru and Oryx.
I thought just a little bit further so Frostmats wouldn't be able to catch her.
No.
I mean, that is...
I wanted to go deep into the room. But, I mean, we saw an Amaru race.
What if you have a reinforced wall, though? Is that just going to knock you out?
Yeah, she gets downed.
Okay.
That's the trade-off.
That's a trade-off.
Okay, enough about that. 30 seconds gone, and, well, not much in terms of the engagement has happened. A bit of a slower clear here, because this is how Sandbox seemingly like to do their approaches. We can see a bit more of a presence over the top, in that there's a player trying to cause a bit of a presence and persistence over the top here. It's something where, when we have Sandbox go for this push before, it wasn't successful. 3 of them tried to funnel their way through a breach that wasn't fully opened, and they suffered because of it. Black Grey, he's going to see if he can try and relive some of the glory days of the opening half of this map, where he was in control entirely on the defense. He just found no sort of trouble. Swinging, kept on doing all the damage.
Entry from Envy. Not an Amaru-like one, just through the front door. Walken sees a hatch that has been opened up, needs to be worrying about a potential drop, but sees a player and finds Caesar C, fires him in the back to the head, and that is going to be yet another entry here for the side of Sandbox. That is going to be very, very huge. These last dying stages of this round, potentially. There is a bit more freedom now and starting to open up.
I mean, that's absolutely massive. We did not see them get the entry very often, and I think it was the first time they did, was the first round they're actually able to take on their attack here. They've got themselves built up for a start, but it's only the start. And we have seen teams stumble and stutter on this site because, as you said, it's not the easiest to get yourself in on. It's so locked in, it's claustrophobic. The Flores, they're going to see if they can try and get some destruction done, and they do. Able to catch one of the shields. There's a second around the corner. The barb goes down as well. There's a lot still stacked up behind this wall. They might see if they can try and get the breach. Sophia's doing their best to hold on above. Everything is being burnt over the top. The pings, the consistent blinds as well. There it is, broken open, and Static finds Anaton as well. The echo is gone. The smoke's doing everything they can to try and hold on here. Sprays desperately over the back and the sides. Black Grey has to start to try and make a move. A flat-sided Amaru take and the push all the way down onto the line, but Black Grey heard it. He's pinging, holding onto the angles, and the rotation actually goes on the other side of Drug Lab. Gatorada, a huge kill because it allows Black Grey a bit of space. One more, caught under the side of the Flores drone, but might be able to secure this just tucked around the corner. There it is. Black Grey on the rotate goes massive. Harakaze's able to get one more on the back, but it's Ayagator popping up inside the site. A 1 versus 1 to determine it, and it's Ayagator that takes us all the way.
How did they manage to survive this? For a while, Sandbox seemed like they had it in their pockets there. Massive flanks coming in from either side. Massive plays on the side of Cyclops. Keep them in it all the way to round 15, where Sandbox again will be on the defense, but with the throne out of the way, there is a bit more of an opportunity here for Cyclops now. And as we head towards the initiation, I mean, we all remember what happened last time. It was the lack of the coordination. The fews are pushing in whilst the rotates and the flankers are being taken care of. If they just fix that issue, Cyclops, with the swing of momentum in that last round, might just be able to pull it off anyway.
It's that sort of moment where even with massive moments of Cyclops being Cyclops and just forgetting and throwing at moments, they still almost won the round. They still have that ability to muscle through mistakes and see if they can try and bring it together. Sandbox need to be aware of this. They can't rest on those laurels because when they have, the Cyclops have struck, and they've struck very quickly. So there is still this pressure, this presence. We've got the Nook on the board once again. iGator might try and find their way in. The drone is being placed underneath in throne, but then it pulls away, and that's where they were caught out by the Capcan the very first time they came for this site.
Yeah, Frostmat second time, and now Frost again being set up in all kind of different positions, all different kind of hop-ups. They know that Cyclops, you know, they jump over anything they can find just to take the shortest route possible towards either safety or a gunfight. Whatever it is they're looking for, and just putting these Frostmats in all these different kind of positions, you might be able to catch one off again, especially on the window on top Dragon. Wouldn't be surprised if that's finding someone.
More attention being paid to computer, and as I said, here it is, the Nook. A bit of a surprise strike that didn't work the first time round, wasn't really thrown in the second, and the third might be the moment where, if it doesn't get caught by the Capcan, it could absolutely start to put things apart, because if you make any side of this a little bit weaker, you'll see teams often try and put some pressure onto one side and then swing around for the approach elsewhere. Well, that might be what they're hinting at. That barbed getting got means iGator has a route up. It's being watched at the top of the stairs, but it now has to be watched at the top of the stairs.
I'll make sure he's not being caught off this time, yep. Inside of the throne. More C-Returers coming in. Actually might be checking for Frostmats this time around, and we'll be able to get that shield. Not the Mute Jammer, though. Might be a bit of an issue. Look at that, by the way. Behind the default plant, also a Frostmat. He's currently playing on it, Shal. That could definitely pick up someone and ruin their round if they do decide to go for a plant. Oh, again, I said it! This one is going to catch someone off, and it does! It's Black Ray that is now down on 20 HP. Needs to be making sure that he's not going to be hunted, so the drone needs to be put onto a bit of a flank watch here before they go for the pickup.
I mean, more time having to be spent here. Anaton's going to smoke off his drop round here, and well, they're going to at least get themselves in the building. You assume Black Ray is going to get picked up because Sandbox probably isn't going to want to swing into this fight. There are pings of a potential player, but that's just caution that has to be paid. 3 of them technically engaged in that. You can see iGator came around to make sure nobody snuck up the bottom of Dragon as well. It took a lot to pick up that 4th player, leaving only really 1 active trying to do pressure onto the site. Just under a minute left now, and they've got to try and do all their internals. There's still Mute Jammers, but at least that wall gets popped open. The play around the Thatcher means that they can do some of the destruction and damage they just didn't or couldn't do before. But tucked in, that body might cover that kit. It might also get it killed. As he's waiting under that drop hatch. You can see Good Boy still has some control over the other side, and as I said, sometimes it has to be a 2-sided attack, and here's the pressure from the other side. The glass onto Cafe, iGator is still underneath, and maybe a drop on a hatch. It's Black Ray, though, that opens us up. MV Taylor, gone.
30 seconds, Emmy. There's not much time. They're so far away from the site. What are they going to try and do here? Urkazi is going to be able to find the glass. That is that side of the map taken care of. iGator is trying to rotate up, and Galarada find himself inside of the break, finding one of the kills as well. But they still need to go over. They still need to go inside of the initiation. And look at Shal right here. He's prone, hiding on the Frostmat, looking to ruin their round.
Oh, there it is. There's a cold kit. There's a second player. There's Shile. There's a 3 versus 1. And there it is. A Sandbox 2 points, fought every step of the way. Cyclops, they leave with 1. It's one of those Cyclops stories where it probably should have been 3. And this is a game that it's been big today. We said it was going to be the game of the day, but I think when we're looking at who goes to the major, it could be defining.
It could.